I have an introduction to do. And it's going to be maybe whoever, it's not going to be everyone in the room, but I'm going to ask you a question. So first of all, how many people in this room, say in the last year or two, have dealt with interchange connecting, whether you're a buyer, whether you're a regulator, service provider, farmer, dealt with this interchange, buying and selling between grower and a buyer at any level? So that you have dealt with that, you spend some time with that directly or indirectly in your job. Good, my goal is to have basically everyone raise their hand because we're all involved in that. Okay, so just think, and this is where I want to introduce a couple of people based on your response. In that capacity, where has there been in the last year or two sort of a moment of pain or something that wasn't working well, and you are just like, oh, this isn't working well, and just snapshot, what is that? What was that moment? Something that could have been better, that may be an immediate solution if only you have some response like that, or maybe you're like, I have no idea how this could be solved. So just take a moment to think of a situation. Hopefully, well, not everyone in the room is going to think of a situation, but hopefully a few will. And I just want to hear sort of a snapshot around the room. Introduce yourself, where you're from, what's your capacity, and then what that moment was. Okay, and that's it. That'll get us in the mood. Maybe we'll do 10. But just a few minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, I do a lot with audits and growers.
Well, you have to say your name.
Hi, Wes Klein, Director's Cooperative Extension, and I co-manage our on-farm food safety program. Do a lot with audits, and the question comes up by a lot of growers is, what audit should I get? And I'm not going to name companies, but these buyers are looking for one X audit, and it's going to cost me $10,000. And my first response is, why in the hell are you doing it? And you need to go back and question that buyer, why they are requiring that audit. Because in most cases, it's someone was sold them on, this is the absolute best thing next to sliced bread, and it doesn't make any difference because another audit is cheaper and will do the same thing.
Great, thank you. All right. Someone else. Yes. Name, where you're from, what you do, and.
My name's Andre Gatomo. I'm with Heron Pond Farm, but I wear a lot of hats. One of them is we have a local food distribution company called Blue River Farmers Alliance, and so we have 40 growers that aggregate in one spot, and then we distribute their food to a bunch of different buyers. And they're, buyers are dictating and saying which audits we want to echo West, but some of this stuff is incredibly redundant. And we have several growers with alphabet soup next to their name of, the audits that they have, and then the landscape changes under our feet seemingly instantaneously, and there's like a new, no, we need this one. And it's incredibly frustrating to onboard that way. Like the onboarding process is a nightmare. It's easier to get food safety certification for the trucking company that's delivering this food, which is probably if we're gonna talk about food safety, it's probably considerably more dangerous than the rest of the process that's going on farms, especially if they're audited and inspected farms. So I think my frustration is I don't see, and I hate to come at it this way, but I just don't see the food safety logic that's being applied to the decision-making process of which audits that are required from buyers. And I would like to see, I'd like to see, how can we work better with buyers to be like, well, the goal is food safety. Let's just get there. Why do we have, why does this have to be so complicated, a process?
right at the heart of the matter. Yeah, there's tension, right? There's tension there. We all feel it between needing that regulation structure sort of naturally, given our cultural sort of liability situation, corporate situation, where we are. That is a definite call and a need, and it's come through FISMA. And then we also have this sort of other end, which is kind of rubbing up against, just let's reduce risk and make good food, like that kind of thing. And it's just we got to do it logically. So that's sort of like an umbrella tension that I'm interested in. And we got to somehow kind of pierce that, because it's not one or the other, but we have to kind of hold them together. It's my feeling, and it's important to air both of them. Anyone else? Yeah.
So Abby, Vermont Institute of Agriculture, so you'll hear a little bit from Dina and Christina about some buyers' work, but the piece that I was going to share was about a year ago, we stopped offering gap audits by Vermont Institute of Agriculture staff. And that was a combined decision by our leadership based upon the few number of gap audits that we did every year in Vermont. It was less than 30. And we had to make, our leadership, our secretary had to make decisions about prioritization of what staff needed to do, and staff had to be refocused on a different task. And so we had to write a letter to the produce community in Vermont that said, we no longer are offering gap audits out of the Agency of Agriculture staff. There are other options available to you as producers, including getting a gap audit or a harmonized gap audit or participating in our state CAPS program. And that was hard for producers to hear that we were changing things and we were going to do it differently, and we didn't have the same services that we could offer, and to then answer their questions about where could they go, how much was it going to cost, what options did they have based upon what their buyers were there different standards, how could they stay engaged with a state person that they had a relationship with and knew. And I would say, we're still kind of figuring that out and working through, I think, some good options, but also some hard moments with the industry at different times as well.
Great. Let's do a couple more, and we want to move into the handbook, but definitely, this is really helpful to set the stage. Yeah.
Estrin, Wegmans Produce Food Safety Manager. First of all, Wes, I've never asked anybody for a $10,000 audit, so I'm just throwing that out. We've worked with USDA. More of a positive spin, I'll be honest with you. They've alluded to, a lot of the New England states have come up with our own audits. And for us at Wegmans, we've always worked with USDA. We continue to work with USDA in their audits. But overall, the experience has been very good with those states and what they've done. I actually toured some of the farms in New England with those folks this summer, just to kind of go through that whole process to make sure it was sufficient to our needs. And I just want to throw out there, so far it's worked very well for us. So it's a bit of a learning curve on our end, and a little change in what we've always done, but trying to work with folks as best we can. It's been a pretty good experience so far.
Here's the voice of the optimist, a bit of a learning curve. I do want to point out, right, that actually Wegmans has been a leader kind of from the buyer end in this, and Hannaford has done stuff too, and other buyers. But that learning curve, I know, has had struggles and push, and there are a lot of buyers out there who are back where you started, whatever, and they don't have the heart behind it or the mission. Mm-hmm. And so, like, can we serve that group to kind of help bring people up to speed? And that is, again, what a lot of the states are doing with their outreach programs, and what I think this fire handbook has in mind as sort of this more regional way to connect stuff. Maybe, how about you guys, the two of you, and then we'll move on and hop into this. And you'll have a chance to really, if there are things that are, they're going to come out, because we're going to really dive into the handbook in general in both two places here as we move forward. So, yeah.
Gretchen Wong, Produce Safety Alliance. This may be opening up a can of worms beyond the scope of this project, but one question that I know growers have come to me with is this pressure from buyers who don't understand what the delineation is between produce safety rule and preventive controls, which is understandable given the farm definitions are very unclear. but they also see these requirements in the PC rule that have supplier verification in it. So then they assume that those people should also be in compliance with preventative controls rule. So there's a lot of confusion from the growers being asked by the buyers, oh, you have to comply with both of these, or they're getting questions related to the PC rule when really they're doing farm activities. And that really goes back to that farm definition being sort of gray area right now. So, yeah, it's a bit of a can of worms.
Thanks, Becky.
I have a similar pain point. So my name is Lee Cook. I originally came from Department of Agriculture and have a background in food hubs and vegetable processing, among other things. And I would say one of our pain points is that same confusion about regulation versus audits. And so in some food hub forums, food hubs are saying, well, I'm going to have all my growers comply with the minimum requirements of FSMA. And as a regulator and an outreach educator, that doesn't mean anything like the way it's being used at all. And then there's also some of this, we don't really know where some of the logic is coming from the specific fire requirements of some of the, well, we want everybody to have a harmonized audit or to have a HACCP plan for leafy greens, which I would hope that most folks in the room might have some background as to why that would be a bit of a question mark to those of us who are regulators. And I mean, we could get into that too if anybody needs to know why that's a confusing prospect and a confusing requirement from our side of the house. But some of that basic confusion about, well, we want someone to have the minimum requirements of FSMA compliance, or we want a certificate from inspection. So I'm not sure that serves the grower particularly well. You know, like we cannot offer certificates in the state of Maine, just based on what our jurisdictional authority is, how we have to operate under FDA authority. And I don't think that it serves a grower to provide you with an inspection report when they may not be able to get an inspection year after year. So there's a lot of things that are baked into the actual technical, jurisdictional, regulatory framework that, you know, this handbook might be helpful for that. But there's I don't know how much buyers in general know about that. And my experience in business is that there can be a lot of turnover in who your buyer is on your regional or local level. And so that might make this a good resource for that you may have leadership that has longevity, but there's a lot of challenges in turnover of buyers. So.
Great. Okay, I'm imagining there are a few hands that were going up that we're going to put off because we have limited time, and the focus of this time is to try to come out of it with some really good ideas for kind of a draft of this thing, or whatever it would be. However, I would like to welcome the people out there in the sort of back, you know, the peanut gallery out there. But you look like you got comfortable seats. So if you go to sleep, we'll start throwing things at you. There may be some more chairs coming. And this is a chance to raise your hand if you had a question that you kind of wanted to ask, or not a question, you wanted to put out a sort of tension point, and you raise your hand, but I'm not going to actually call on you. And the reason, I just want to see how many people had sort of something they wanted to contribute to this discussion that were out there right now. There are a few. I'm not going to make you talk, don't worry. I'm just, maybe there's a hand there. Now you're shy.
Yeah, I wanted to mention a pain point that maybe we can eventually get there as a community, mainly through the buyers, which is, I'm always struck by the fact that when we have a butternut producer who's selling whole squash, they're asked to have an audit. But if they're processing that same product, they're not asking for anything. You can look at the risk assessments of both of those products. I would assume the process is slightly riskier, although not very risky either, since it has to be cooked before consumed. And obviously, this has a lot to do with just system dynamics. Audit programs arrive before regulatory frameworks. I'm wondering when that transition takes place, if it can take place independent of what states are doing in terms of inspection or work planning, if it's annual, every 3 years, because for those PCQI farms, they just have to be registered and they get an inspection based on the state's protocol, and that product's accepted through buyer networks.
You noting that one down? So what do you know? I think we got it. Okay, great. All right, so I'm gonna move on. What I was gonna say is if you do have sort of a pain point thing that you think should be addressed and wanted to scratch on a piece of paper that in front of you and kind of hand it to us, that would be great. Okay. All right, let's just take a couple minutes of what we're gonna do, a couple minutes to get, I wanna back up a little bit of the broader vision. It's not gonna take a lot of time, but this is something that I think is really important to do at this stage. And we kind of, as we got at sort of why we're doing this and really went over the nuts and bolts of this grant, I want to even step back some more and just say, toss out a couple of things. So remember, I'm piecing together, what the summary of this, which is we have buyers coming in, often regionally, to a situation that has a lot of colors in it, right? Like there's different situations in all these different places. So what the handbook can do, right, is to actually, where there are questions and confusion, it could actually be able to parse out. You could put a location in. Okay, I'm in New Hampshire. What does the landscape look like here? Or if I'm on another state, what does it look like? So if you're a buyer that deals regionally, you have this could be a tool that could really help display with some higher resolution what's going on in each state and what is the common stuff. What is holding this all together? The FSMA stuff, FSMA for dummies. Like what are the key things? What are the national programs? What are the things holding this all together? So I think that's where our opportunity is. And then bang, if you want, here in Massachusetts, they have a great state program. If you go there, you're actually in their website. So like that could be a good option. Like there could be this kind of back and forth. We don't want to duplicate stuff. We don't want to write some page about what Massachusetts is doing and list all that stuff. That doesn't make any sense as far as I'm concerned. So I think that we got to really watch that dynamic and figure out the right place to go. Why is it important? Because we're as an industry, we're in a decade of change around produce safety. Right, FSMA regulations coming in, lots of different audit programs, with a lot of wheeling going on. At the same time, that there's a big market push. And so the last thing that's keeping the eyes on the prize, right, I just want to point out, like, it's not going to drive what we're doing here, but, so this, right, collaborative tool, that's the point I wanted to make for this, why are we doing it, why is it important? That this can be a collaborative tool that helps display differences, but also commonalities in this region, and would help buyers, but it has the audience as well, of growers, service providers, etc. Okay, so at the same time, all this change is happening, and we really need some sort of like benchmarking, some sort of calibration between states. We've got another thing going on, and the reason Wegmans is so successful, or Hannaford Closer to Home program is so successful, they know all about it. And that is kind of keeping the eyes on the prize. The prize being that there is a trend, right? It's been the last couple decades, but it's definitely strong in the Northeast and in a lot of other places. People are looking for fresh, local, they want to walk into the produce section and see their local farmers, really fresh, luscious produce just there. They want a hip story, they want nutrition, they want taste, and they want to have that all the time, right there. And that's the prize. It's right, you're looking at it, it's right in this room. It's the consumers right here, and the farmers that are giving stuff. That's what we are here for. That is the reason we're doing all this, is to support that thing, whatever that thing is. Wegmans' marketing team knows what that thing is, right? I'm just pointing because you're in the room. But the irony or the paradox is that we can't separate these two things. They have to go together. And so I think that's really important. But if what these two things, the regulatory side, the frameworks, the consistency. That has to go hand in hand with this story. So like, I think that that's a really important thing from the beginning, that we need, we can't be too far into the side of losing sight of the customer and the farmer and making that work, because if that doesn't work well, we're gonna shoot ourselves in the foot. So I just wanna make that point, and that's my furthest back I'm gonna go, and I'm done. And we're gonna go back in. But any thoughts or questions on this? And I've got one or two more slides.
Why isn't West Virginia in there?
I don't know. Why is it West Virginia? You can fire me now. I just felt that, actually, I would look for Northeast states, and I just pulled it on some photo online. It was colorful. I wanted the multicolored. That's what I was drawn in by. I'm sorry, West Virginia. What else am I forgetting? Okay. Okay, so we won't spend that much, but this is what we're getting into, really in the work groups. But there's some bigger questions, who are we actually serving? How are we gonna do it? How could this be a collaborative effort and not waste time? What are the contents of this thing? And, how should we design it? Like, if this is an online tool, what should it look like? Search kind of thing? Is it like in a PDF kind of looking thing? I don't know. How's it sourced and maintained? That's really important. We got to design it with longevity in mind. And how do we keep communication open? How do the process, that's not even up here, the process in the next 2 years. What's kind of cool about this is we've got this goal. Okay, we're going to do this silly little handbook at the end, so leading there at the end of our 2 years. But what's going to happen with this $150,000 as we partner it up along the way is really important. That what's going to happen is we're going to be communicating, coming up against barriers. We're going to figure out a lot of different stuff, and we're going to progress just in making this thing, and that is a cool thing. So how can we do it? That's part of what we're doing. Okay, so we're done. I think 5 years out, things are going to settle out a little bit, but we got work to do. They're never going to get solid, but they are going to, hopefully, we get to a place where there is some benchmarking, some ability to compare and understand as a buyer what you have access to, what you need to do that kind of stuff. So that's it for just setting that stage far back, and I think this is the point where I'm going to turn it back over maybe to Elizabeth to make a transition. We're going to split into a buyer.
We have a couple presentations
Oh,
first.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Whoa! This is the point where I'm going to turn it over to some really cool presentations.